Have you ever wondered why some people can't seem to respect you, no matter what you do? Why their opinions weigh heavier than they should? What if the real battle isn't about them, but about you? Before you learn how to deal with people who don't respect you, there's one truth that changes everything. It's not about them. It's about knowing who you are and who you belong to. The moment you allow someone's opinion to define your worth, you've already handed them more power than they deserve. You could spend your entire life trying to earn the respect of those who were never meant to value you. You could twist yourself into countless versions, softer, stronger, quieter, louder, just to please them. Yet, no matter what you do, they'll always find a reason to look past you. Because when someone doesn't respect you, it's rarely about your flaws. It's a mirror reflecting their own brokenness. You can't fix that, but you can fix what's inside of you. That's your work. That's your calling. When people ignore you, belittle you, or make you feel invisible, resist the urge to prove them wrong. Don't shrink back. Don't shout louder. Instead, remember your identity. You weren't created to be validated by others. Your worth was built in from the start. No words, no silence, no betrayal, and no rejection can erase what's been divinely declared over your life. There's peace in letting go of the chase for approval from those who don't even respect themselves. And there's freedom in realizing that your purpose isn't to convince anyone of your value. It's to live it. Walk in it quietly, humbly, boldly. Because your worth doesn't need applause to be real. Maybe it's a friend who only appears when they need something. Maybe it's someone you loved who made you feel like you were never enough. And in those quiet moments, the enemy whispers, "See, you don't matter. You're not worthy." But let me tell you a truth that silences every lie. You do matter. You were created in the image of the Almighty. You were formed with purpose. You were never an accident. When others fail to see your worth, don't let their blindness become your reflection. Don't let their confusion define your identity. Your value isn't tied to applause or approval. It's anchored in something far deeper, eternal, and unshakable. Here's what I've learned. People can only respect others to the degree that they respect themselves. That's why some can't speak kindly to you. They've never learned to speak kindly to themselves. That's why some diminish your dreams. They gave up on their own. That's why others find fault with you. They can't bear to face their own failures. And if you forget who you are, you'll mistake their disrespect for your mistake. But you haven't failed. You've simply outgrown a space where your value was never truly seen. And that, my friend, isn't a curse, it's a calling. So what do you do when people don't respect you? You get still. You quiet your spirit and remind yourself that you're not living for man's validation. You're living for a purpose greater than opinions. You tell your soul, "I am enough," not because they say so, but because I was fearfully and wonderfully made. You keep walking, even when they laugh. You keep standing, even when they doubt. You keep shining, even when they try to dim your light. And listen closely, don't let disrespect make you bitter, let it make you better. Let it refine you, not define you. Let it prove that you're growing beyond what they can handle. Not everyone will celebrate you. Not everyone will understand you. And that's okay, because when you truly know your worth, you stop needing everyone's approval. You just stay faithful to what you've been given. When someone doesn't respect you, you don't fight for attention or beg for validation. You rise. You heal. You hold your head high, not in arrogance, but in quiet assurance. You live in such a way that their disrespect no longer matters because your worth was never up for debate. Still, when someone disrespects you, that sting hits deep. The sharp insult, the cold silence, the cutting tone. It hurts, doesn't it? You feel the fire in your chest, the tension in your jaw. Maybe you want to shout back. Maybe you want to cut them down with words just as sharp. Maybe you want them to feel the same sting they gave you. But here's something that can change everything. Don't react emotionally. Respond spiritually. There's a difference. A reaction is instant, born from pain, anger, or fear. But a response is chosen, measured, and rooted not in feelings but in faith. When someone disrespects you, the enemy wants you to react out of your flesh. But God calls you to respond from your spirit. It takes far greater strength to stay silent in peace than to speak in rage. It takes more courage to walk away than to strike back. Because silence, when grounded in spiritual discernment, isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Some think being quiet means being passive. It doesn't. Silence isn't surrender. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes it's protection. And sometimes, it's the very space that allows God to step in and do what only He can do. The world will tell you to clap back, to shout louder, to prove your worth through pride. But remember this, the world is loud because it's insecure. The Spirit of God is quiet because it's sure. When you know who you are, when you walk in truth and stand firm in grace, you don't need to prove anything. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. Your character speaks louder than your emotions ever could. There will be times when you're misjudged, overlooked, or mistreated, when people twist your words or question your intentions. And if you're not grounded, you'll react. You'll lash out. You'll waste energy explaining yourself to those who were never really listening. But when your soul is anchored in God, you begin to see that not every battle is yours to fight. Some belong to the Lord. I've met people who carry years of anger, not because they're weak, but because they never learned how to let go. They never learned how to respond with faith instead of fury. They clung to every insult, every wound, every disrespect, until it poisoned their peace and stole their joy. You can't live free if you're chained to every offense. You can't walk in purpose if you stop at every insult. So when the urge to react feels strong, pause. Take a breath. Pray, not for revenge, but for release. Ask God for clarity in your silence, for wisdom to know what truly deserves your attention, and for strength to let Him handle what's beyond your control. You don't have to speak every time someone speaks against you. You don't need to defend every lie. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent and let the truth rise on its own. Because truth doesn't need a defender, it stands firm all by itself. Truth doesn't need defense, it just needs time. And remember this, responding spiritually doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means walking away with dignity. It means setting boundaries with grace, keeping your heart clean while guarding your space. You don't need to curse anyone to protect your peace, and you don't need to hate anyone to let them go. The Lord will fight your battles if you give Him room. Understand this deeply. Responding spiritually isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's choosing faith over impulse, peace over pride. It's trusting that God sees every wrong and will handle what your hands cannot. That kind of restraint isn't passive, it's powerful. It's rare. It's holy. So next time someone disrespects you, don't go low, go higher. Higher in thought, higher in grace, higher in wisdom. Look up, not around. Because a reaction may win the moment, but a spiritual response wins the war. Let your peace confuse them. Let your calm disarm them. Let your silence preach louder than words ever could. There comes a moment when talking no longer works. You've explained, you've asked, you've forgiven, and still, they don't change. They treat your voice as if it doesn't matter, crossing boundaries you've drawn with care. That's when you must understand the quiet power of boundaries. Not loud or dramatic, but firm and clear. Boundaries set not in anger, but in wisdom. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to post about it. You don't need anyone's permission. Because when someone repeatedly disrespects your presence, you have every right to protect your absence. And you do it quietly, calmly, prayerfully. We've been taught that love always means staying close, always available, always giving one more chance. But sometimes, real love means stepping back so peace can step in. But love, real love, is not the same as access. Just because you care about someone doesn't mean they have permission to mistreat you. Just because you've known them for years doesn't mean they've earned the right to dishonor you again. And forgiveness doesn't always mean they get to stay in the same place in your life. Boundaries aren't walls meant to keep people out. They're gates designed to protect what's sacred within. Your peace is sacred. Your purpose is sacred. Your mind, your emotions, your spirit, they're far too valuable to be open to chaos and disrespect. When you understand that, you stop responding with bitterness, you respond with boundaries. And not every boundary has to be spoken. Some are simply lived. There's strength in silence and clarity in space. Sometimes the only way others will recognize your worth is by feeling the absence of your presence. It's not revenge, nor is it punishment. It's simply understanding that you can't force someone to respect what they're not ready to value. You can't make someone treat you better by staying close while they continue to hurt you. I've seen people remain in toxic spaces for years, believing that if they loved harder, prayed longer, or stayed quieter, things would change. But the longer you ignore disrespect, the louder it grows. The more you tolerate what breaks you, the weaker your spirit becomes. God never called you to stay where you are constantly dishonored. He didn't create you to be someone's emotional punching bag. He called you to live in peace, to walk in love, and to guard your heart. And sometimes, guarding your heart means guarding your space. You don't need to slam the door, just close it gently and walk away. No drama, no noise, just peace. When you start setting quiet boundaries, some people will accuse you of changing. They'll say you've grown distant or cold. But there's nothing cold about protecting your soul. There's nothing wrong with stepping away from those who repeatedly show no concern for the damage they cause. And yes, some people will test you. They'll keep pushing, waiting to see how far they can go. Every time you let them cross the line without consequence, they learn your words don't carry weight. But the moment you move differently, when you stop explaining and start adjusting, when you stop warning and start walking, they realize they can no longer take your presence for granted. It's not easy, especially when it's someone you love, someone you've prayed for, someone you still believe in. But God never called you to be loyal to pain. He called you to be faithful to your purpose. And sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is walk away in peace and let God handle what your words could not fix. You are not being selfish by protecting your peace. You are not being unkind by stepping away from disrespect. You are being wise. You are being obedient. You are choosing to trust God with your heart instead of handing it to those who don't know how to hold it. That's not pride. That's maturity. That's faith. That's growth. So if they don't call like they used to, if they stop checking in or showing up for you, don't chase. Don't beg. Don't force a connection that disrespects your soul. Just adjust. Set the boundary. Keep your peace. And let your silence speak for you when words no longer need to. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things we're called to do, not because we're weak, but because we've been wounded. When someone disrespects you, betrays you, or makes you feel small, the pain runs deep. It's not only the words they spoke, it's how they made you feel invisible, how they broke your trust, how they ignored your dignity and walked away as if it never mattered. And in those moments, forgiveness feels impossible. But remember this, forgiveness isn't saying what they did was right, nor is it pretending it didn't hurt. Forgiveness is about freedom, your freedom. It's not something you do for them. It's something you do so you can breathe again, so you can rest at night without carrying the weight of their wrongdoing. Because holding on to unforgiveness doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. That bitterness, that quiet anger you've tried to bury deep inside, it never stays buried. It shows up in your relationships, in your words, in the way you see the world. It steals your joy, poisons your perspective, and before you realize it, you start becoming what they were, cold, guarded, angry. But that's not who you are. That's not who God created you to be. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain. Some wounds cut too deep to ever fully forget. It means remembering differently. You stop carrying the hurt like a sword and start wearing it like a scar. And scars aren't signs of defeat. They're proof that you survived. Proof that what was meant to break you didn't win. Every heartbreak holds a lesson. Every betrayal carries wisdom. If you let God work through your pain, He will turn it into power. But to see that transformation, you must release the offense. Let go of the need for revenge. Stop replaying that moment of hurt over and over in your mind. Because every time you relive it, you reopen the wound, and God can't heal what you refuse to release. Some of you are still waiting for an apology, still hoping they'll admit they were wrong, still expecting closure that may never come. But your healing cannot depend on their repentance. Even if they never say sorry, you can still forgive. Even if they never acknowledge the pain, you can still move forward. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you choosing to live free. So don't waste your life trying to make others feel the pain they caused you. Let go, and let God turn your pain into peace. Don't get trapped in the cycle of bitterness that drains your spirit. There's too much ahead of you to stay chained to what's behind you. The more you try to punish them in your heart, the more you punish yourself. Because every time you replay what happened, you relive what happened. But when you forgive, you take your power back. Forgiveness doesn't say they were right. It says you're done letting them occupy space in your heart. That doesn't mean you let them back in. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. It's not restoration. Forgiveness happens in your heart. Reconciliation requires two changed people. And if they haven't changed, if they're still disrespectful, dishonoring, or unsafe, then your boundaries remain necessary. You can forgive and still walk away. You can forgive and still say, "You no longer belong in my circle." Letting go doesn't mean forgetting the lesson. The pain taught you what self-respect truly looks like. It taught you to stop tolerating what doesn't align with your purpose. It reminded you that peace is too precious to negotiate. Keep the lesson. Release the bitterness. Too many people waste years holding grudges, afraid that letting go means losing something. But what they don't see is that the longer they hold on to the hurt, the more they lose themselves. Don't let someone who doesn't even respect you keep you from becoming who God called you to be. Don't let the pain they caused stop the healing God wants to give. You don't have to carry that weight anymore. Today, make a decision, not for them, but for you. Say, I forgive you. Not because you earned it, not because you apologized, but because I refuse to let your actions poison my peace. I forgive you, not to go back, but to move forward into what God has prepared for me. Let go of the offense. Keep the wisdom. Walk in freedom. When someone disrespects you, there's a voice inside that whispers, you need to show them who you are. Pride rises. Hurt demands a reaction. You want to speak up, to prove your worth, to fight back, not out of weakness, but because you're tired of being misunderstood, overlooked, or dismissed. But here's the truth. As you rise in purpose, maturity, and grace, you'll stop fighting every battle that calls your name. You'll begin to choose peace over pride. You'll learn that not every insult deserves an answer, and not every opinion deserves your energy. You were never created to shrink down to someone else's level just to defend your worth. You don't need to stoop to pettiness to feel powerful. You don't have to return the same disrespect that was given to you. The world will try to bait you into noise, and the enemy will try to drag you into conflict, hoping you'll destroy your own peace by fighting shadows. But when your spirit is anchored and your heart is rooted in truth, you rise above it. Not because you're better than them, but because you know better. There's a quiet dignity that comes with spiritual maturity, a calm, steady strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. You don't have to defend yourself to people who've already made up their minds, nor explain yourself to those who refuse to understand. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is silence, not from pride, but from wisdom. It's knowing your purpose is too valuable to be interrupted by small-minded distractions. We live in a world where everyone wants to clap back, expose, cancel, or get the last word. But none of that brings peace. None of it heals. None of it restores your dignity. It only drains your soul. When you choose to rise above the insult, the gossip, and the sarcasm, you step into a higher realm of strength. That's not weakness. That's power under control. That's strength wrapped in humility. You don't need the last word. You need the right heart. You don't need their approval. You need God's direction. Because God can handle what your anger never could. He sees what's said in secret. He hears what's whispered behind your back. And while you may feel tempted to strike back, God is calling you to rise. He's calling you to let your actions speak, to let your consistency, integrity, and fruit speak louder than any words said against you. You weren't built to live in the mud or dwell in drama. You were made to soar. And remember this, eagles don't chase flies. When you elevate yourself, your perspective changes. You begin to see that not everything deserves your reaction, because not everything is worthy of your attention. Some situations are sent only to distract you. Some arguments are traps. And if you step into them, you might win the argument but lose your peace, your joy, and your focus. Don't trade your destiny for a moment of pride. Yes, it hurts to be disrespected. It stings to be looked down on, especially when all you've done is give and love. But listen, God sees what you've done in silence. He sees your restraint, your tears, and your pain behind closed doors. And He hasn't ignored any of it. He's preparing your reward. He's fighting for you in ways you can't yet see. If you stay faithful, if you keep rising above the noise, He will honor you in ways that silence every critic without you saying a single word. Your character is your defense. Your peace is your protest. Your faithfulness is your answer. So stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. Stop wearing yourself out trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Just rise. Keep walking, keep building, keep shining. Because the more you grow, the quieter you'll become, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. After all, the view from above is never crowded. Not everyone can go where you're headed. So let them talk. Let them assume. Let them throw their shade. You just keep your head high, your heart clean, and your spirit steady. You don't need to shout to prove your strength. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is smile, stay silent, and keep walking in your purpose. There's a deep peace that comes when you finally realize what's not yours to carry. Other people's disrespect, their behavior, their choices, their silence, that's not your burden. You can't fix what you didn't break. You can't heal someone who refuses to face their pain. And no matter how much love or effort you give, you can't make someone respect you if their heart isn't ready to honor what God has placed in you. Some of you are living in quiet turmoil, trying to control what's far beyond your reach. You replay conversations in your mind, wondering if you could have said something different or done something better. But that kind of weight will crush you if you keep carrying it. That pressure was never meant for your shoulders. It belongs to God. Here's the truth that will set you free. When you've done all you can, when your words were kind, your efforts sincere, your heart open, and your intentions pure, and someone still disrespects you, mistreats you, or walks away, you are not the failure. You're not the problem, and you're not the fixer. You have to release it to God. Because what you can't change, He can transform. What you can't reach, He can touch. What you can't understand, He already sees with perfect clarity. But there's a line we often cross when we try to do what only God can do. That line can blur, especially when our hearts are deeply invested. We think, if I just keep trying, maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll see my worth. Maybe they'll come back and apologize. But the truth is, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll stay the same. Maybe they'll never see it. And that's where trust comes in. Not trust in them, but trust in God. You can't live your life holding your breath, waiting for people to finally do right by you. You can't keep your peace on pause, hoping they'll come around. You must trust that even in their absence, in their silence, in their rejection, God is still at work. He's still writing your story. He's still defending your name. He's still providing in ways you can't see. And He will bring justice in His time and His way. Some of the people who hurt you aren't losing sleep over it. They've moved on. Meanwhile, you're still tossing and turning, replaying the words, the silence, the pain, and it's wearing you down. But hear me, your healing doesn't begin when they say, I'm sorry. It begins the moment you say, God, I give this to you. I can't carry it anymore. There's a holy kind of freedom that comes when you stop trying to play God, when you stop writing your own justice, when you stop needing closure from someone who may never give it. When you start saying, Lord, I trust you to handle what I don't understand. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's maturity. That's surrender. Sometimes the reason you're still trapped in pain is because you haven't released the people who caused it. You're still holding on, hoping they'll change, waiting for them to act differently, expecting them to come back and make things right. But if they haven't changed by now, if they still haven't shown you respect, it's time to stop putting your healing on hold. Stop waiting for someone else to do what God has already given you the strength to begin letting go. When God says He will fight your battles, He means it. When He says vengeance belongs to Him, He means that too. But He can't fight for you if you're still trying to fight for yourself. He can't restore your heart if it's filled with bitterness. He can't give you peace if your mind is trapped in resentment. At some point, you have to drop it, not because they deserve your silence, not because they've earned forgiveness, but because you're exhausted, because you're finally ready to live free, because you've realized that your peace is worth far more than their approval. So, what do you do when you've been disrespected, dishonored, and discarded? You take it to God. You cry if you need to. You lay it down at His feet. And then you rise, not in your own strength, but in His. You let Him carry what you were never meant to hold. Because when you trust God to handle what you can't control, you walk lighter, you sleep deeper, and you live stronger. Wishing you peace, strength, and joy. Stay blessed, stay focused, and don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more inspiration.